Now, for this session of Pyjama preaching, I'm going to be looking at the story known as the Transfiguration from Mark's Gospel, chapter 9, verses 2 to 9. And it goes like this. 6 days later, Jesus took with him Peter and James and John, and led them up a high mountain apart by themselves. And he was transfigured before them, and his clothes became dazzling white, such as no one on earth could bleach them. And there appeared to them Elijah with Moses, who were talking with Jesus. Then Peter said to Jesus, "Rabbi, it is good for us to be here. Let us make 3 dwellings, one for you, one for Moses, and one for Elijah." He didn't know what to say, for they were terrified. Then a cloud overshadowed them, and from the cloud there came a voice, "This is my Son, the Beloved. Listen to him." Suddenly, when they looked around, they saw no one with them any more, but only Jesus. As they were coming down the mountain, he ordered them to tell no one about what they'd seen until after the Son of Man had risen from the dead. Now, this is one of those very difficult stories in the New Testament, stories about Jesus. And the problem, it seems to me, is this. It seems to be a very kind of magical experience, something which one might be inclined not to take literally. And if you do that, if you don't take it literally, then you can say, well, it's all very symbolic. You can say that there was a tradition that Elijah hadn't really died, and that even Moses, whose death is recorded in Deuteronomy, even for Moses, the place of his burial, his tomb, was lost, was never known. And so they are 2 essentially mysterious characters, and it's not surprising that they're seen in a vision on a mountain. And a mountain is always symbolic, because in the Bible, when people go up a mountain, they have encounters with God more often than not. And you could say that here we have something that is sort of written up to make a point, but of course it didn't really happen because it's all too magical and generally too wonderful. But I would want to contest that. For a start, a lot of people have very strange experiences. Now, you can either dismiss them all as complete hallucination, illusion and fantasy, but they're so widespread and undergone by such normal people, not people one might be predisposed to regard as fantasists, but very ordinary people. Lots of people see angels. Many people at times of crisis, in hospital and so on, have near-death experiences. And I wouldn't want to rule all these out at all as pointing the way, as opening up awareness of something different, some different level of reality. And that is what I think is happening here. I think this is a true story, however much it was written up. And of course, writing up extraordinary experiences is always very difficult. What do you include? What do you leave out? And so on and so forth. And how do you describe the odd experience you've had? But what I think is happening here is that the gospel writer, Mark in this case, is recording a profound experience on a mountain undergone by Jesus' disciples, an experience in which, for a moment, the veil of ordinary everyday reality is taken aside and something more profound is encountered, some special significance in Jesus that they might not have been aware of before. And I don't think this is something unbelievable at all. Yes, it's unusual. Yes, it's mind-blowing. And Peter's response, they're all terrified. Peter's response is almost panic-stricken. He's asking, is he asking for the experience to be maintained? Is he trying to cling on to an experience which is essentially by its very nature a fleeting one? Or is he trying to do something significantly religious and spiritual in a Jewish way? Because for Jewish people at the time, the construction of temporary dwellings, of tents, of tabernacles, was of profound religious significance. So whatever he's doing, he is trying to respond to this mind-blowing experience. And actually, it's in the case of all humans, and perhaps all life as well, we only understand, we only grasp a certain segment of somebody's reality, a certain segment of what is going on at any one time. And it's no surprise that the day-to-day experience of Jesus, the wandering preacher, teacher and healer, the experience of Jesus that his followers had, was normally only a slice, a segment, a very small part of the most profound of all significance that Jesus had, not only to his followers, but for the whole world. And on this Valentine's Day, I want to use a parallel, which you might think rather frivolous or trivial, but I don't think it is. When you fall in love with somebody, you suddenly see somebody who everybody else might regard as perfectly ordinary, uninteresting. They may not even notice them. When you fall in love with somebody, you see them in a different light. You see them as something transcendent, as somebody important, as somebody of profound significance, indeed as somebody with whom you are very keen to spend the rest of your life. And even more wonderfully, if you're fortunate enough for that love to be returned, they will be seeing something in you that you probably weren't even aware of, some transcendent wonder that you were far too humble to notice and realise in your own life. And that's just in ordinary human relationships. People say that love is blind, but I think that's actually wrong. It's the other way around. I think love sees things that ordinary experience doesn't notice. And when you fall in love with somebody, perhaps you're starting to glimpse their transcendent significance, even as an ordinary person, and see them as God sees them. God being, of course, having a more transcendent, a more profound love for us all than we can possibly imagine. And in this case, I think this profoundly true story of an encounter with Jesus exhibiting his transcendent significance is telling us something very important about him, about his followers, and about our lives today, which is that we are not just ordinary beasts crawling along the earth with no significance, nothing beyond this life to hope for. And indeed, I would say that that's not even true of the beasts that crawl upon the earth. I think they have a profounder significance than for most of history we've realised, because they, like us, are beloved creatures of God. But in this story, there is a focus on a deeper and more profound segment and transcendent aspect of Jesus' nature. And it's no surprise that the disciples encountered him this way on one special occasion. No surprise that it occurred on a mountain. For Jewish people at the time, a mountain was a highly significant location. And no surprise that it should reveal Jesus as somebody utterly more wonderful than one could possibly imagine. But if you can't take away that sort of rich, profound spiritual message from what I've said today, at least perhaps when you look at somebody else, try to imagine that you're only seeing a tiny slice of their profound and wonderful transcendent significance, their belovedness, which they have as fellow children of God. And may God bless us all this Valentine's Day, and I wish you every joy of what the day may bring.